Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Facebook Live Lunch and Learn with the Center for African American Health. My name is Eric Moore. I'm the Research and Evaluation Coordinator. I also run the Be Heard Mile High Advocacy Project here, and I'm overseeing the outreach activities for the 2020 census campaign to help spread the word on why people should consider completing the census this year. For those who are not familiar with who we are and our mission, the Center for African American Health is committed to improving the health and well-being of the African American community by offering community-based, evidence-based disease prevention and disease management programs, events, and services. So today, we're focusing on the Census 2020 and want to welcome Parker Crowe, Program Manager with the Department of Local Affairs. The center couldn't, I just want to say first and foremost, the center couldn't have done this work without the generosity from the Department of Local Affairs, who awarded us with a grant to help educate African Americans around the importance of being counted and participating in the census. Before we go to Parker, some quick stats I just wanted to bring up. There is a revision on the census timeline due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The census right now for self-response is open past its original date of July 31st this year. It's actually all the way up until October 31st. So everybody has a chance to respond to the census by October 31st, but we encourage you to do it earlier. It saves us the ability to not have to spend more taxpayer dollars on enumerators who do door-to-door actions. So it'll kind of help get everything out of the way very quickly for everyone if they consider going online and doing it or doing it by phone. According to a source called Hard to Count 2020, it's a website that tracks self-response rates around across the United States. As of yesterday, 58.4% of Colorado households have already self-responded to the census. This is compared to 67.2% in the 2010 census. In the U.S. overall, 54.6% of households have responded. So we still all have a long way to go, and we're hoping that today's session will kind of help with showing exactly why you should, how easy it is to complete the census, and where you can go to get more information if you're curious about anything around the census this year. So if we can go straight into it, Parker, just want to let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work in the census.
Great, thanks so much, Eric. I'm really happy to be here today. My name is Parker Crowe. I'm the Census Program Manager at the Department of Local Affairs. The Census Grant Program is $6 million that the Colorado Legislature gave to us at DOLA to administer to give to groups like Center for African American Health and 62 other grant recipients around the state, really to reach what we call hard to count population throughout the state. Through the different censuses every 10 years, they've done a number of studies, and certain parts of the population, certain areas tend to respond at lower rates than average, and that's the problem. So this grant is directly targeted at those hard to count populations, and Eric and all of the rest of our grantees are doing a great job of getting the word out and really just trying to educate people on how easy it is to do the census, how important it is, and how safe it is. You should have no concerns about safety in your response. So just quickly, what is the census? The census is how the government counts every living person in the US. The US Census Bureau has conducted the census every 10 years since 1790, really since the foundation of America. It's really critical to our representative democracy. It's not a partial survey. It's not just a survey of a certain portion of the population. It is a complete count to make sure that everyone gets equal representation in our government and gets access to government resources. Every level of government needs to know how many people live in a jurisdiction so that they have enough representatives to represent the residents' interests. Every level of government, from city councils, county commissioners, school boards, and then up through the state representatives and up to the US House of Representatives, are all based on census data. Without knowing how many people live where, the whole system doesn't work. And if some parts of the population complete the census at a higher rate than others, those parts received unbalanced representation. Also, other than the representation, the funding is a really important part of the census. Hundreds of billions of dollars of federal resources, almost $1 trillion a year, depend on getting funding to where the people are. That ends up being about $13 billion in funds coming to Colorado, about $2,300 per person. That's per every person that's counted. So in particular, why is it so important for African Americans to complete the census? The census is important for everyone, but is particularly important to those that have been undercounted in the past. They did a follow-up study after the 2010 census, and they found that African American population was undercounted by more than 800,000 people across the country. Another stat that really jumps out is that about 7% of young African-American children nationwide were not counted in the 2010 census, which is about twice the rate for young non-Hispanic white children. When you think about African-American children being represented in our government at half the count of white children, it really shows how critically important it is for every African-American to complete the census, and particularly to include all children living in your household. Census data is tied into civil rights law. The data is used by federal agencies to monitor discrimination and implement civil rights laws that protect voting rights, equal employment opportunity, and more. And as we've said, the census also impacts how federal funding is allocated to states and localities. $13 billion in federal funds come to Colorado every year, depending on census data, which ends up being about $2,300 per every person counted. These funds go to every type of program you can think of, from education and childcare, food and nutrition, healthcare and housing, and really just anything you can think of. And just to wrap up, it's actually required by law to complete the census. Not to scare you, there isn't much enforcement, but it is actually required by law to complete the census. And as Eric mentioned, self-response is due by October 31st, but please try to get that census in as soon as you can, so Colorado can catch up to where we need to be. Thanks, Eric.
That's perfect. Thank you, Parker. Yeah, great points that Parker brought up. Particularly when you think about the amount of money that goes into being counted, $2,300 per person every year for 10 years, because you're locked in every time we complete a census. That data gets updated, and so it's amazing to see how much we lose out every year per person, and that includes children. When we're not counted. So thank you for bringing up. Those are very important points. With the census, something that always helps is, people might be talking about the census, might kind of explaining a little bit about what it is. So we wanted to make sure that we can have an opportunity to show you guys how easy it really is to complete the census online. If you haven't filled out your census already, we just want to show how easy it is to do. I'm going to walk you through an example here to show you what kind of information is requested and how fast you can fill out the form. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to show you that we have the website page up here, so we can go ahead and get started. Not sure. I apologize. Parker, can you see that screen now?
Yes, I see your desktop background, I think.
Oh, I apologize. I think I swapped it out. Yeah, sorry.
I like that one.
Oh, thank you. Okay, here we go. So as you guys can see, we're here at the website here for the 2020 census. Just to get to this website, all you have to do is just type in 2020census.gov. You can see here at the top here, that's what I have. As soon as you land on the page, first thing you can do right away is hit the button to click respond here. So when it opens up here, you'll get a welcome page. And on this page here, it kind of explains a little bit about some things you probably heard. It's really easy to take, 10 minutes to complete. It's confidential as far as your information is protected. No one will know what your responses are. It's not shared outside of the Census Bureau. And it is something that, that you are protected in that sense. There's a lot of money that's allocated, but we'll kind of go through and show you exactly how to do this. One thing I'll notice on the note here on the bottom is that if you look, you'll see that there's all these different languages down here. So with that here, we have 12 different 13 languages here, but if you were to click on them, it will convert the page into that language, and you can take the entire questionnaire in that language. It is something also that at any point you can switch between those languages as well. The website does have language guides, so if you have any trouble or can't complete it under any of these languages, there's language guides that will show you exactly what language you can match up to other questions that are in different languages, so that you can still complete it in a way that you understand what it is that you're reporting out. So we're going to do it in English, and we'll just here on the right-hand side hit Start Questionnaire. So the very first thing is that it's going to ask you something that happened back in March and in April, is that a lot of people at their door got an invite letter that has their census ID. It's a 12-digit ID that helps tie your address to your responses. The census uses addresses to actually tile the responses to show where everybody's reporting from. So that's something that they'll require from you. If you do not have your ID, and that's what you were sent in the mail at your home, if you don't have the ID, that's okay. What you can do is right here under the login button, you can see it says, if you do not have ID, click here. you can skip that, and what it will do is require you to type in your address. So it's just a little extra step, but other than that, it'll get you right back on track if you had the ID otherwise. So on this page here, first thing it's going to ask is, in order to collect your address, we need to know where you were living on April 1st. So one thing to note is that on the census, they're going to ask questions about everything around April 1st. Because that was done in the past, you're going to have to kind of recall, if you haven't completed yet, who was at your house, and that's some of the questions you'll see a little further. But think April 1st when you're completing the census to give them exactly what they need as far as information on that day. For this one, so we'll just say we're in Colorado, so U.S. state or District of Columbia. Here's a question: where were you living on April 1st? So in this case, I already completed my census, so I'm going to just kind of walk through with some examples that I created just to get you guys through here. So we'll enter in one here. So we'll do 123 Main Street. We are in Denver, Colorado. 80207. Also, if you don't have a street address, feel free, you can click this button. They'll have more steps for you. There is some difficulty if you don't have if you have a PO box, for example, or you don't have a physical address, or there's some other ways that they can still make sure they can get you counted. So after you add your address in, you can hit next. And then it's going to have you review that the address is correct. Because it is fake, we're going to say yes, but we won't submit it. So your name and phone number, so that's the first one. So whoever completes this is fine, because you can add more people on, and you can assign who is the household, the head of the household for this. So right now we'll put the first person, and in this case, I came up with a man named John William Health. And then phone number. For the phone number, they don't actually, they're not going to call you using that. There might be maybe some clarification that they'll have in the future potentially around some of the responses, but you should not expect really a phone call from the Census Bureau. They do take this down for record in case they need to contact you, but it's not something that many people will have to anticipate. So you're okay to put in your phone number as well. It's not in a way that they'll contact you going forward if it's unnecessary. So this next one is, we're actually just moving to a section. I apologize, I kind of skipped over it quickly. There's 4 sections at the top here. We have address verification, household questions, people questions, and final questions. So right now we're in the second section, household questions. So first question is, including yourself, how many people were living or staying at this address on April 1st? So let's pretend I'm John. So I live here with my wife. So that's just 2 of us here. When you hit next, it'll show the list of the name you just put in, and then it'll have an opportunity to give you more names to add on. So I actually live here with my wife. So we're going to call her Joanna. All right. So, and then you would just hit next. If you have any more people on the bottom right here, on the bottom left, you can see add more, another person button. So you can feel free, you can add as many people as you like. And in fact, you do want to make sure you're adding everybody who is at your residence on April 1st. If you have any help, if you need anything, just help buttons all across the survey, but I will tell you exactly who you can count. Sometimes it can get very confusing if someone is not married to you, if someone's staying, if they're unrelated, how do I count them? If they're children, how do I count them? So this is an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about what it is to qualify. You want to make sure, again, that you're counting everybody, because $2,300 per person is a lot to lose out on. So I'll add Joanna. So here you'll see, it'll say Joanna and myself. And again, it'll show another example of some people that might qualify you want to count. So make sure that you read that. If there's no other additional people, you can hit no and then next. It says, on this date, was the house, apartment, or mobile home at this address owned by you or somebody in the household? So some different options. If you're an owner or a renter, they have you pick out which ones. I'm going to say that me and Joanna own the house. We have a mortgage out on it. So we'll click that first selection. Then when you hit next, it says other people who live at this address, who owned it on the 1st. Actually, we'll say both of us. We're actually both our names on the house. So now we go back to this where we've completed the second section, household question. Now we're moving on to people questions. And it's going to have us specifically talk about 2 people, John and Joanna, separately. So we'll start with me. So once you hit start, it's going to ask what your sex is. Again, there's help buttons that help you with qualifying. When it comes to identities, we have to consider that a lot of people might not use the same preset choices that are on the questionnaire. So it's good to really look at those help options and to really consider how you want to self-identify when it comes to completing the census here. After sex, it asks for the age. So let's just say my birthday is today. And let's see, I was born in 1970. And you'll see on the bottom here where it says verify correct age, it will auto-populate the age based off of today's date and of the date of you taking the census and also what birthday you put in. So it shows my age right there. I can go ahead and hit next. If this was a person who was a child, for example, here you'll notice that it says for babies, if you're under the age of 1. So if we're talking about infants, you still want to make sure that you're entering a number, but you're going to put 0 as the year. And that will count them even if they are a week old. You still want to make sure you're getting babies counted as well. Youth are ones that get overcounted a lot during the census, unfortunately. So after that, it's going to ask about Hispanic origin. So I am not of Hispanic origin, so I'll click that selection. There are a few different ones, and then in fact, you can actually specify if you'd like any kind of ancestral roots or national roots as well, if you'd like on the following up as the write-in option here. And then after that, it asks for race. So with the race, there's some different things here. You can start to actually clearly define what type you are under these different races. There's a few different pre-select choices. If you don't see anything that fits you, there are some other boxes that you can add in. So you can always type it in as well if you don't see anything you identify in. In this case, we're going to type in, here, we are Black African American in particular. So that is me. After that, it goes to Joanne. So we'll start her. One extra question now is going to ask, because there is more than one person, is going to ask, what's the relationship to this person? As far as Joanna to me, John. So in this case, she's opposite sex wife for me. So I will click that option. You can see there's a lot of different familial roots and also ones that are unrelated, roommate, housemate. So again, unrelated folks can also be counted, and they should, because we want to make sure that it's something that's not getting missed, no matter where you are on the 1st of April this year. So after that goes into some of the similar questions I receive. What is sex? So female for Joanna. Her date of birth, we actually share date of births, but she's a year off from me. A little further down. Here we go, so she's 48. She's a year younger than me. She is not of Hispanic origin either. Hit next, and then it's gonna ask for her race. So Joanna is like myself, American. We'll hit next there. And then we get the final question. So here it's going to ask, would you like to make sure that everyone, so they're specifying again, if there's anybody who you maybe have not counted, this is your last opportunity to do that. So, you want to make sure that you're mentioning anybody here. So if you see everybody's there, great. Who usually lives or stays here? Let's see, I apologize. So I misread the question. So do anybody live or stay in any other place than this main address? For us, no. So we're going to put none of the above. You can indicate if there's someone else. For example, if you have a child who's in college, you can indicate that as well. There are some different ways that people who live in different quarter living spaces like college dorm rooms get counted, but it is a way that you can make sure you can note that that's still an individual you're tying to your household. And then this is literally the last page here. So because this is an example, we're not going to actually submit it, but I just wanted to show you how easy it was. It took me even longer just explaining it out loud to you guys. So this is something that's really easy to do, really quick. We encourage everybody to go ahead and jump online and do it. It's much quicker. There's a lot of other options when it comes to filling out the paper questionnaire that comes in the mail and also doing it by phone. You can always go to 2020census.gov to see those different ways that you can respond. So let me close out my screen here. Okay, perfect. And then we are back. So I'm glad we can just show exactly how quickly it is to go through all of that. We did have some more questions that we didn't want to bring up, but Parker, just wanted to see, now that everybody can see how easy it is to navigate and fill out this form, you guys might still be concerned about sharing your information. Parker, can you talk specifically about safety and security about completing the census?
Definitely. That was excellent, Eric. It's really great to just see exactly what's included. You might have noticed that it does not ask for your social security number, citizenship status, any personal identifiers. Name and address are asked, but that's only to ensure that every person in the country is counted only once. It does not ask for any financial, religious, or political information, so you can be be assured that there's no bad repercussions or anything even tied to you coming out of this census. Census workers are actually they sign a sworn oath saying that they cannot divulge any of this information for their life. It is a lifetime oath that they swear. They can face up to $250,000 fine and jail time if they break that oath. So that data is very safe. The Census Bureau cannot share the information or individual respondent answers with the FBI, the CIA, welfare, immigration, or even the president. Even if the president of the United States asked the Census Bureau for individual information, they could not share it because they've signed an oath saying that they're keeping that information secret for life. So you can really trust that this information is safe and it's guarded to the full extent.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, that's something that pops up a lot. Another question is we wanted to know is how is the information that's shared on the census used to make budget allocations, and which programs receive those dollars?
Anything you can really think of, Eric. It's so many different programs. As I said, it's coming up on the last I saw was a 2015 survey, and it was about $600 billion of federal funding, so probably close to $1 trillion at this point. That survey found 132 different funding programs that look at census numbers to figure out where to send the dollars. It goes from education and childcare programs, that's Title I funding, to schools that have a lot of kids from low-income families. It goes to school lunches, Head Start childcare programs, food and nutrition benefits, including SNAP benefits, are allocated by census data. Medicaid, $312 billion in 2015 was allocated in Medicaid based on census population data. Section 8 housing choice vouchers use census data. Almost anything you can think of. Natural disaster recovery funds, funds for firefighters, funds for hospitals. I'll add it up. It's about $2,300 per person in Colorado. So if we don't fill out our census, our tax dollars just go somewhere else to someone else that did fill it out somewhere else.
Wow. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Something that did come to mind is that I was just thinking about resources, and I want to make sure that in the chat, I'm going to share some resources for everyone. Because this video will be recorded for an archive on Facebook, you guys can always access those later, but I'll go ahead and enter those in, including our census page at the Center for African American Health, and also DOLA, a few different resources from DOLA when it comes around the census, and also how the COVID is impacting census. We are at that point right now of this conversation where we can take some questions. I did see a question come up through Facebook here. Let me make sure that we can get to everybody's questions. So one question that did pop up on Facebook is, and this is something that maybe Parker, you can tell me about why they kind of they create the census this way, but why do they not include LGBTQ+ orientation questions?
That goes back to the safety. That is just not something that they are asking for. It really is trying to get, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable sharing that information. It's not useful for most of these programs. It really is just the bare minimum of what they can ask. So you can be assured that any kind of information that could be used to target anyone in a negative way is not included in the census. It really is just, as Eric showed, those are all the questions included, and that's all they're looking to know.
Okay, that's perfect. So I don't have any other questions that pop up, at least Facebook right now. I think you did mention earlier that there's no longer a citizenship question on the census as well.
That's correct. Yes. The Supreme Court did remove a citizenship question that was trying to be on there, but there is no citizenship question on there. It is trying to count the residents of the country, not citizens. So please fill it out, no matter your citizenship status.
I froze a little bit here. Okay, here we are, we're back. That's probably, and I think that's something that brought a lot of fear and intimidation to communities across the United States, was really kind of honing down on when it comes to identity and just when it comes to immigration status as well. It's been a lot of information has been passed along, especially with COVID kind of coming into play with how the census operation has really been impacted. So that's perfect. Thank you. One thing we do want to mention again is that this is something that happened very early on, but there's a lot of people who do fraud around the census. So people won't ask you, just like Parker mentioned earlier, people won't ask you about social security number. They won't ask you about bank account numbers. They won't ask you to pay for anything to complete the census. Again, it's free. You can do it online. So just keep in mind, there's also a way that you can report it to the census as well. So visit our website. If you see any fraud, feel free to report any activity that you see. It helps prevent a lot of people from being swindled during a time where we really just want to make sure that we're able to get everything that we need in this nation.
One thing I just want to add quickly is how easy it is to fill out. Eric walked through the online version, but some people don't have great access to the internet. You can fill out the census online using your phone, a voice call on the phone or on your smartphone, or even fill out a paper form. So whatever access you have to get this done, it's really important to get those census forms completed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a good thing to explain. There's even more accessibility this year. In 2010, they never had an online option. So this is the first time we're actually able to do something like this for the whole nation to be able to respond on. So we're very happy that that's an option. It definitely will help with response rate, and we're excited to see what those results look at the end of the year.
Especially with the pandemic, it's great that we can respond online so easily.
Yes, absolutely. Very timely. That's perfect. Well, okay, so we are at the end here. So, we just want to say, we're out of time. Wanted to say once again, thank you, Parker Crowe and the Department of Local Affairs for their support and generosity, and for everybody participating in today's Facebook Live. This video, again, will be available to you along with other information on the center's website at caahealth.org. Thank you again for joining us today. We'll see you next week for another Facebook Live Lunch and Learn. Have a great day, everyone.